There is a moment every man has felt at least once in his life, but almost nobody talks about it. A moment where the air shifts, where silence becomes charged, where a woman looks at you in a way that feels almost like an invitation, but you don't know what the next step is. You feel something subtle but powerful, something real, something human, and yet you hesitate because you know that one wrong word can close the door, and one right word can open a connection capable of pulling her closer than you expected. Most men spend years trying to understand attraction without ever realizing that attraction is rarely about saying the perfect thing. It's about creating the perfect emotional atmosphere. A woman can forget your shoes, your watch, even parts of your appearance. But she will never forget how you made her feel when she was around you. She will never forget the man who made her feel emotionally awake, emotionally safe, emotionally understood. And the truth is, most conversations today never reach that level. They stay on the surface. They stay predictable. And because of that, people walk away feeling empty without even knowing why. Before we go deeper, I want you to pause for a second and really think about this. Have you ever met someone who made conversation feel effortless? Someone you couldn't stop thinking about afterward, not because they were trying too hard, but because they made you feel seen? That feeling changes people. And if you've ever struggled to know what women actually respond to emotionally, then you're in the right place. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, and stay until the end because the final question we're going to discuss today has quietly created more emotional attraction than most men realize. And I want you to comment below with one word: presence. Because that single word is the foundation of everything you're about to learn. Most men think attraction is built through performance. They believe they need the perfect opening line, the perfect confidence, the perfect image. But women are emotionally perceptive in ways many men underestimate. A woman can often sense when a man is performing instead of genuinely connecting. She can feel when he's trying to impress her versus when he's truly interested in understanding her. And the difference between those two energies changes everything. Maggie, host of Queen of Psychology YouTube channel. What you're about to understand goes far deeper than dating advice. This is about human psychology, emotional psychology, the hidden mechanisms that make someone feel drawn toward another person almost instinctively. And once you understand these emotional triggers, your conversations stop feeling forced. Women stop responding to you politely and start responding to you emotionally. That's when connection becomes natural instead of stressful. One of the biggest mistakes men make is assuming women want constant excitement. But emotionally mature women are not searching for noise. They're searching for emotional resonance. They want to feel understood without needing to explain every layer of themselves. They want to feel emotionally relaxed around a man instead of psychologically evaluated. And this is why the right questions matter so much. A question is never just a question. A question is an emotional doorway. The wrong question keeps everything at surface level. The right question invites vulnerability, imagination, trust, and emotional openness. It signals that you are not just looking at her, you're actually seeing her. And here's something important most men never hear. Women are constantly adapting socially, constantly filtering themselves, constantly reading emotional environments. Many women spend their entire day adjusting their personality slightly depending on who they're around. At work, with family, on social media, in relationships. So when a man creates an environment where she can finally stop performing and simply exist emotionally, that becomes unforgettable. Think about that for a moment. The rarest emotional experience today is not excitement, it's authenticity. That's why some men with average looks create incredibly deep attraction, while other men who appear perfect struggle to create emotional connection. One man makes her nervous, the other makes her feel alive, and women remember alive. I once worked with a man named Daniel who told me he could never understand why women lost interest in him. On paper, he had everything: successful career, good physique, stylish appearance. He said all the right things. But every conversation felt strangely rehearsed, like he was reading from an invisible script. Women responded politely but never deeply. One day I asked him something simple. When was the last time you became genuinely curious about a woman instead of trying to make her like you? He went silent. That question changed him. Because for the first time, he realized his conversations weren't about connection. They were about validation. He wasn't listening to understand women. He was listening for opportunities to impress them. And women can feel that instantly. The moment he shifted from performance into presence, everything changed. His conversations slowed down. He stopped interrupting silence. He stopped trying to control outcomes. He became more curious, more grounded, more emotionally attentive. And suddenly, women started opening up to him in ways they never had before. Not because he became more manipulative, because he became safer emotionally. That word matters more than most men realize. Safe does not mean weak. Safe means emotionally grounded, predictable in a healthy way, calm under pressure, attentive without being invasive, present without being controlling. Women are biologically and psychologically drawn toward emotional stability because it allows their nervous system to relax. A woman may feel temporary excitement around chaos, but she feels lasting connection around calmness. And calmness begins with how you communicate. This brings us to the first question women absolutely love answering. What's something you've always wanted to try but never have? At first glance, it sounds simple. But psychologically, this question is incredibly powerful because it activates emotional expansion. Most people walk through life trapped inside routines, responsibilities, expectations, stress, survival. But beneath all of that lives another version of themselves. The version filled with curiosity, fantasy, possibility, and unrealized dreams. This question touches that hidden part instantly, and women love this because very few people ask them about possibility anymore. Most conversations revolve around obligations, work, schedules, bills, problems, stress. But this question shifts her emotional state away from pressure and toward imagination. And imagination is deeply connected to attraction. A woman who begins imagining exciting possibilities while talking to you unconsciously associates you with emotional expansion. That's important. Human beings are emotionally associative creatures. We connect feelings to people automatically. If someone consistently makes us feel judged, we avoid them. If someone consistently makes us feel inspired, we gravitate toward them. Now here's where most men make a mistake. When a woman answers this question, they rush to solve it. She says she wants to travel somewhere, and immediately the man starts giving advice. She says she wants to learn photography, and he starts explaining cameras. She says she wants to try salsa dancing, and he starts making jokes. But emotionally intelligent communication is not about taking over the moment. It's about deepening it. If she says, "I've always wanted to live in another country for a year," don't rush. Stay emotionally present. You can calmly ask, "What do you think draws you to that idea?" Now you're no longer talking about geography. You're talking about freedom, identity, reinvention, emotional desire. And that's where connection lives. Women open emotionally when they feel emotionally explored, not emotionally managed. I remember a woman once describing the moment she became deeply attracted to her partner. And what fascinated me was how ordinary the situation sounded on the surface. She said they were sitting in a quiet coffee shop late at night when he asked her, "What's one thing you've always wanted to do that scares you a little?" She laughed and admitted she'd secretly always wanted to perform live music, even though she was terrified of judgment. And instead of teasing her or trying to motivate her aggressively, he simply smiled and said, "I can actually picture you doing that." That was it. No performance, no dramatic seduction, no perfect line. But she said something inside her softened in that moment because she felt emotionally believed in. Do you understand how powerful that is? Most people are starving for emotional encouragement. Starving for someone who sees possibility inside them instead of limitations. And when you become associated with emotional safety and emotional expansion at the same time, attraction deepens naturally. Now here's another layer most men miss. Women often test emotional environments before fully opening up. They reveal themselves gradually. A small truth first, then another, then another. They're subconsciously checking whether you can emotionally hold space without judgment, ridicule, or insecurity. The way you respond to her answers matters just as much as the question itself. If she shares something vulnerable and you immediately mock it, dismiss it, or turn attention back toward yourself, the emotional door closes. But if you respond with grounded curiosity, warmth, and emotional steadiness, her nervous system relaxes further. And relaxed emotions create openness. This is why emotional intelligence consistently outranks superficial charm in long-term attraction. Charm may create attention. Emotional understanding creates attachment. There was a study published through research on interpersonal connection showing that people feel significantly closer to individuals who ask emotionally engaging follow-up questions during conversations. Not just questions in general, follow-up questions specifically. Why? Because follow-up questions communicate investment. They say, "I'm actually listening." And being deeply listened to is one of the rarest emotional experiences in modern life. Especially for women who often feel talked at instead of understood. So if she tells you she's always wanted to start a business, Don't immediately pivot into your own goals. Stay with her world for a moment. Ask her what kind of business. Ask her what inspired the idea. Ask her what excites her most about it. Ask her what scares her about it. Now the conversation becomes emotionally layered instead of informational. And emotionally layered conversations are what create memorability. Have you ever noticed how some conversations disappear from memory almost instantly, while others stay with you for years? The difference is emotional depth. Emotion is what brands experiences into memory. That's why women remember conversations that made them feel emotionally alive. Not because the words themselves were magical, but because the emotional experience attached to those words became meaningful. And here's something even deeper. When a woman starts imagining future experiences while speaking to you, her brain subtly begins including you in the emotional atmosphere of those imagined experiences. This is why emotionally stimulating conversations create lingering attraction. She leaves the interaction not just remembering you, but feeling you emotionally. That's rare. Most conversations today are functional. Very few are transformative. And transformation begins with emotional permission. The permission to dream out loud. The permission to reveal hidden desires. The permission to feel emotionally expansive without fear of judgment. A grounded man creates that permission naturally, not by trying to force intimacy, but by slowing down enough to truly see the person in front of him. And the beautiful thing is, this approach doesn't just improve dating, it improves every relationship in your life. Because human beings are drawn toward people who make them feel emotionally safe to exist as themselves. Next, we're going to go much deeper into the next questions women love answering, including the question that instantly reveals her emotional values, the question that quietly builds trust faster than flirting, and the hidden psychological reason women become emotionally attached to certain conversations long after they end. There's something fascinating that happens when a woman realizes she doesn't have to protect herself emotionally around you. Her voice changes, her breathing slows, her answers become longer, softer, more personal. It's subtle, but powerful. And most men completely miss the moment because they're too focused on trying to impress her instead of observing her emotional shifts. The truth is, attraction rarely explodes instantly. Real attraction unfolds psychologically. It builds through emotional safety, curiosity, anticipation, and emotional resonance. Women don't simply respond to how a man looks. They respond to how they feel in his emotional presence. That feeling becomes the foundation of everything else. And one of the fastest ways to create that emotional atmosphere is through the second question women deeply love answering. What's the most meaningful part of your day? This question works because it bypasses routine and goes directly into emotional significance. Most people ask, "How was your day?" But that question usually produces automatic answers. Busy, good, stressful, fine. The conversation dies almost instantly because the question never reaches the emotional layer beneath the schedule. But when you ask a woman what part of her day feels meaningful, you force her mind to shift inward. She has to pause, reflect, reconnect with herself emotionally before answering. And that pause matters. Because emotionally engaging conversations are built through reflection, not rapid-fire talking. A woman might tell you the most meaningful part of her day is sitting quietly in the morning before everyone wakes up. Maybe it's her evening walk after work. Maybe it's calling her mother. Maybe it's going to the gym because it makes her feel strong again after a difficult breakup. Maybe it's reading before bed because it's the only moment she truly feels calm. Now notice something important. None of those answers are really about the activity itself. They're about emotional states. Peace, freedom, strength, connection, safety, purpose. Emotion is always underneath behavior, and emotionally intelligent men learn to listen beneath the words. For example, if she says, "Honestly, my favorite part of the day is driving home alone after work with music on," she's not just talking about music, she's talking about decompression, mental freedom, emotional solitude. That answer tells you something profound about her nervous system and emotional life. And when a woman feels understood at that level, she feels emotionally closer to you. Not because you said something clever, because you paid attention. I once heard a woman describe why she lost interest in a man she initially found attractive. She said, "Every conversation felt like he was waiting for his turn to speak." That sentence stayed with me because it perfectly captures why so many modern interactions fail emotionally. People aren't starving for attention, they're starving for presence. A man who genuinely listens without rushing to dominate the conversation instantly separates himself from the majority. And women notice that difference quickly, especially emotionally intelligent women. Because many women spend years around emotionally unavailable communication. Men who interrupt, men who compete, men who flirt constantly without ever truly listening, men who ask questions only to redirect attention back toward themselves. So when a man calmly holds emotional space instead of trying to control it, it feels rare. And rarity creates value. Now here's another reason this question is so psychologically powerful. It reveals her values indirectly. People reveal what matters most to them through what they describe as meaningful. If she lights up talking about helping people, you learn compassion matters deeply to her. If she talks about creative projects, you learn self-expression matters. If she talks about peaceful routines, you learn stability matters. If she talks about deep conversations with close friends, you learn emotional intimacy matters. Her answer becomes a map of her emotional priorities. And understanding someone's emotional priorities is far more important than memorizing surface-level facts about them. Because attraction deepens through emotional compatibility, not just chemistry. This is where many men sabotage themselves without realizing it. They focus entirely on trying to be attractive, instead of trying to understand attraction emotionally. There's a huge difference. Trying to appear attractive creates pressure. Trying to understand someone creates connection. And connection is what women emotionally attach to. Think about the people you feel closest to in your own life. Chances are, it's not the people who constantly tried to impress you. It's the people who made you feel emotionally comfortable being yourself. That emotional comfort is addictive, especially in a world where most people feel psychologically exhausted from pretending all the time. And this leads directly into the third question women absolutely love answering. What kind of people do you feel most comfortable around? Now, this question may sound simple on the surface, but psychologically, it's incredibly revealing. Because when people describe emotional comfort, they reveal emotional wounds, emotional needs, and emotional desires all at once. If a woman says she feels comfortable around calm people, there's usually a reason. Maybe she grew up around chaos. Maybe past relationships were emotionally unstable. Maybe she's tired of anxiety and emotional unpredictability. If she says she feels comfortable around funny people, she may crave emotional lightness because life has felt heavy for too long. If she says she feels comfortable around emotionally open people, it often means she's experienced emotional distance before. Every preference has emotional history behind it, and emotionally aware men understand this. They don't just hear words, they hear emotional patterns. One woman once explained that she felt safest around people who didn't make her feel rushed. That statement sounds small until you really think about it. Imagine what her emotional life must have looked like. Maybe she spent years feeling pressured, rushed emotionally, rushed physically, rushed psychologically. So now calmness feels deeply attractive to her nervous system. This is why attraction can never fully be understood through surface traits alone. Human beings are emotionally shaped by experiences, and women are constantly responding to emotional energy far more than men realize. This is also why confidence alone is not enough. There's a version of confidence that feels grounded and safe, and there's another version that feels performative, loud, and emotionally exhausting. Women instinctively feel the difference. One creates trust, the other creates tension. Now here's something fascinating psychologically. When a woman describes the kind of people she feels comfortable around, she is unconsciously comparing you against that emotional template in real time. She may not even realize she's doing it consciously, but her brain is asking, does this man feel emotionally safe? Does his energy align with what I emotionally need? Can I relax around him? Can I be myself around him? And if the answer starts becoming yes, attraction deepens naturally. Not forced, not manipulated, naturally. This is why emotional alignment matters more than performance. A woman can admire a man and still not feel emotionally connected to him. But if she feels emotionally understood, emotionally relaxed, and emotionally accepted around him, attachment begins forming almost automatically. And here's something important many men misunderstand. Women do not open up emotionally because a man is perfect. They open up because his presence feels emotionally non-threatening. That's a massive difference. Perfection creates distance. Authenticity creates closeness. One of the most attractive qualities in a man is emotional steadiness. Not emotional suppression, steadiness. A man who can stay calm. Listen deeply. Respond thoughtfully. Hold eye contact comfortably. Sit in silence without panicking. Disagree respectfully without becoming defensive. That kind of emotional grounding is rare now, and because it's rare, it becomes magnetic. I remember a story from a woman who met her husband during a difficult period in her life. She said what first attracted her to him wasn't his appearance or even his confidence. It was the fact that she felt peaceful around him. She said, "When I spoke to him, I never felt like I had to earn his attention or manage his emotions." That sentence explains emotional safety perfectly. Many women unconsciously spend enormous energy managing other people's emotional reactions, trying not to upset someone, trying not to disappoint someone, trying not to trigger insecurity or ego. So when a man feels emotionally stable enough that she can finally exhale psychologically, her body remembers that feeling. And people become deeply attached to the environments where their nervous system feels safe. Now let's go deeper because this next question changes conversations completely. What's something about yourself you're proud of but rarely talk about? This question reaches an emotional depth most people almost never experience in normal conversation. Why? Because it gives someone permission to reveal hidden pride without feeling arrogant. And that's incredibly powerful emotionally. Many women carry invisible victories nobody fully sees, battles they fought privately, growth they achieved silently, pain they survived quietly. But society often teaches women to minimize themselves, to stay humble, to avoid appearing too much. So many women hide the very things they're most proud of emotionally. This question unlocks those hidden layers gently. And when a woman begins sharing something deeply meaningful she rarely discusses, emotional intimacy begins forming rapidly. Because vulnerability creates emotional bonding. Now pay attention here because this matters. Most men think vulnerability means trauma dumping or revealing pain immediately. That's not true emotional intimacy. Real emotional intimacy often begins through meaningful pride. The moment someone feels seen for who they truly are, not just physically, not just socially, emotionally. A woman may tell you she's proud of putting herself through school alone, or overcoming anxiety, or rebuilding her life after heartbreak, or learning to love herself after years of insecurity, or helping her family through difficult times, or becoming emotionally stronger after betrayal. And when she shares those things, something important happens psychologically. She begins associating you with emotional acceptance. That's powerful because acceptance is one of the deepest human needs. People are constantly hiding parts of themselves out of fear they'll be misunderstood, judged, or minimized. So when someone feels safe enough to reveal something meaningful and receives warmth instead of judgment, emotional trust deepens quickly. And trust is the true foundation of attraction. Not games, not manipulation, not performance. Trust. One of the biggest myths modern dating culture teaches is that emotional distance creates attraction. Temporary curiosity? Maybe. But lasting emotional connection? No. Lasting attraction grows through emotional depth combined with emotional safety. That combination is incredibly rare now. Which is exactly why emotionally intelligent men stand out so strongly. Because most people communicate at surface level their entire lives. Surface flirting, surface humor, surface confidence, surface conversation. But very few people know how to create emotional depth without making interactions feel heavy or forced. And that skill changes everything. Because once a woman feels emotionally understood by a man, she starts thinking about him differently. Not just as someone attractive, but as someone emotionally significant. And emotional significance is what lingers in her mind long after the conversation ends. Next, we're going to explore the next two questions women love answering, including the question that instantly lowers emotional walls, the psychological reason peace is more attractive than excitement, and the hidden emotional pattern that determines whether a woman feels drained by your presence or deeply drawn toward it. There's a reason some people leave you feeling emotionally exhausted after only 10 minutes, while others make you feel calm, energized, and strangely understood even after hours of conversation. It has very little to do with appearance, status, or charm. It has everything to do with emotional energy. Women are constantly reading emotional energy, often unconsciously. They notice tension in your voice, impatience in your reactions, neediness hidden beneath confidence, emotional instability disguised as passion. And because women are naturally attuned to emotional environments, they often respond more strongly to how you make them feel internally than to what you're saying externally. That's why some men create attraction effortlessly without appearing to try very hard. Their energy feels grounded, calm, emotionally safe. And in a world filled with chaos, emotional pressure, and overstimulation, calmness becomes magnetic. This is where the next question becomes incredibly powerful. What's something that instantly relaxes you or brings you peace? At first, this sounds like a casual question, but psychologically, it reaches into one of the deepest parts of a woman's emotional world, her sanctuary. Every woman has emotional escape points. Places, rituals, experiences, or habits that help her nervous system reset. Because emotionally, mentally, and socially, many women are carrying far more internal stimulation than they show outwardly. Think about modern life for a moment. Constant notifications, constant expectations, constant comparison, constant emotional labor, constant pressure to appear composed. Many women move through life emotionally overstimulated while pretending they're fine. So when you ask what brings her peace, you're not just making conversation. You're inviting her mind into emotional relief. And that emotional relief becomes associated with you. That's the deeper mechanism most men never realize. Human attraction is deeply neurological. People unconsciously move toward individuals who regulate their emotional state positively. If someone makes you anxious, tense, insecure, or emotionally drained repeatedly, your nervous system begins avoiding them naturally. But if someone consistently makes you feel calmer, lighter, safer, more emotionally balanced, your mind starts craving their presence. This is why emotional calmness is one of the most underrated attractive traits in existence. Now here's where things get interesting. When a woman answers this question, pay attention to the emotional atmosphere surrounding her answer. Does her face soften when she talks about being near the ocean? Does her voice slow down when she describes late-night drives? Does she smile differently when she talks about cooking with her grandmother? Does her posture relax when she mentions music, books, rainstorms, hiking trails, candles, or quiet mornings? Those emotional shifts matter, because they reveal what emotionally regulates her nervous system. And when you understand what emotionally regulates someone, you understand them at a far deeper level than surface attraction ever reaches. One woman once explained that the thing bringing her the most peace was waking up before sunrise and drinking coffee alone in silence. Now, some men would hear that and think it sounds boring, but emotionally intelligent men hear something deeper. They hear someone craving stillness, space, solitude, mental quiet. And those emotional needs reveal personality far more accurately than surface-level facts ever could. This is why emotionally meaningful conversations create stronger attraction than endless flirting. Flirting creates tension, but emotional understanding creates attachment. And attachment is what keeps someone emotionally invested long after excitement fades. I remember hearing about a man who completely changed the dynamic of his relationship simply by learning how to emotionally slow down conversations. Before, every interaction with women felt rushed. He constantly felt pressure to be funny, impressive, entertaining, or exciting. Silence made him nervous. Calmness made him uncomfortable. But one evening during a date, instead of trying to dominate the conversation, he asked a woman what made her feel peaceful. She paused for almost 10 seconds before answering, and instead of interrupting the silence, he stayed present. That moment changed everything, because for the first time in a long time, she felt like someone wasn't trying to pull something from her emotionally. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't trying to control the interaction. He was simply there. Later, she admitted that the silence itself made her trust him more. Think about how powerful that is. Most people fear silence because silence exposes emotional insecurity. But emotionally grounded people know silence can actually deepen connection. When silence feels comfortable between two people, emotional safety begins forming. And emotional safety is the foundation of intimacy. Now let's go even deeper because this next insight changes how you understand attraction completely. Most men believe attraction is built through increasing emotional intensity, but lasting attraction is often built through emotional regulation. A woman may enjoy excitement temporarily, but she emotionally attaches to the man whose presence helps her nervous system feel balanced. That's why emotionally chaotic relationships often feel addictive initially, but become exhausting over time. Meanwhile, emotionally grounded relationships may feel calmer initially, but create deeper emotional security and long-term attachment. Women don't just choose men emotionally, their nervous systems choose too. And nervous systems trust calmness more than chaos. Now here's another important point. When a woman tells you what brings her peace, never mock it, minimize it, or turn it into a joke. If she says she loves staying home reading on weekends, don't immediately tease her for being boring. If she says she loves gardening, don't dismiss it as old-fashioned. If she says she loves quiet mornings alone, don't pressure her into constant stimulation. Because emotionally intelligent attraction requires emotional respect, and respect creates trust. Many women have spent years around people who dismiss their emotional needs. So when a man actually values the things that emotionally regulate her, she feels emotionally safer around him. And safety deepens openness. There's a psychological principle called emotional association. It explains that people subconsciously connect emotional states to whoever is present during those states. So if a woman feels calm, emotionally accepted, and peaceful while speaking with you repeatedly, your presence itself begins triggering those emotions automatically. That's when attraction becomes deeper than logic. because now your presence feels emotionally restorative instead of emotionally demanding. And that is rare, very rare. Now let's move into the sixth question because this one changes the emotional trajectory of conversations completely. What's something you're genuinely looking forward to in the future? This question is powerful because it activates hope, and hope is one of the strongest emotional forces in human psychology. Most adults spend huge portions of life focused on stress, survival, responsibilities, disappointments, or unresolved emotional wounds. So when someone asks about the future in a sincere way, it shifts the emotional atmosphere toward possibility again. Women love answering this question because it gives them permission to emotionally reconnect with their future self, the version of themselves they're becoming. And psychologically, this matters deeply, because people emotionally bond faster when discussing meaningful, future-oriented emotions, dreams, goals, plans, growth, transformation. These conversations create emotional momentum. A woman may tell you she's looking forward to traveling more, starting a business, moving somewhere new, healing emotionally, building deeper relationships, becoming more confident, creating a peaceful life, finding balance, starting over. Now again, notice the deeper emotional layer. Her answer is never just about the goal itself. It's about the emotional experience attached to the goal. Freedom, purpose, peace, love, security, expansion. Emotion is always the real story. One of the most attractive things a man can do is listen to a woman's future without trying to dominate it. A lot of men hear a woman's dreams and immediately start inserting themselves aggressively into the picture. I could help you with that. You should do this. You know what you need? You're thinking too small. But emotionally mature connection doesn't control someone's future. It honors it. That distinction matters more than you realize. Women are deeply drawn toward men who respect their direction in life, especially women who are emotionally intelligent and growth-oriented. Because many women have experienced relationships where their individuality slowly disappeared. Their dreams became secondary. Their emotional needs became minimized. Their identity became absorbed into someone else's expectations. So when a man genuinely supports her growth instead of subtly competing with it, emotional trust deepens rapidly. I remember a woman describing why she became emotionally attached to someone she initially wasn't even strongly attracted to physically. She said during one conversation she told him about her dream of opening a wellness studio someday. And instead of dismissing it or immediately turning the conversation toward himself, he simply asked, "What would that version of your life feel like emotionally?" She said no one had ever asked her that before. And suddenly she found herself describing not just a business, but an emotional vision. Peace, purpose, freedom, helping people heal, creating beauty, feeling fulfilled. By the end of the conversation, she felt emotionally connected to him in a way she couldn't fully explain. Why? Because he invited her deeper into herself. That's what emotionally intelligent men do differently. They don't force attraction. They create emotional environments where attraction naturally grows. And here's something most men never understand. Women often fall emotionally for how they feel about themselves when they're around you. Read that again carefully. If she feels judged around you, she withdraws. If she feels insecure around you, she guards herself. If she feels emotionally unseen around you, she disconnects. But if she feels calm, valued, expressive, feminine, intelligent, emotionally safe, and deeply heard around you, she naturally wants more of your presence. Because your presence amplifies positive emotional states inside her. That's what creates emotional magnetism. Not lines, not tricks, not manipulation. Emotional experience. One of the reasons emotionally grounded men become unforgettable is because they don't constantly pull women out of themselves emotionally. They help women reconnect to themselves. That creates trust at a profound level. And trust is the invisible force underneath every meaningful relationship. Now, there's another psychological layer here that's incredibly important. When a woman talks about the future while emotionally engaged with you, her mind subconsciously starts imagining whether you emotionally fit into that future. Again, this often happens unconsciously. But the brain naturally evaluates emotional compatibility during future-oriented conversations. Do you feel emotionally aligned with her values? Do you respect her growth? Do you create peace or stress? Do you feel emotionally stable enough to walk beside her future instead of becoming another obstacle inside it? These questions happen internally whether she verbalizes them or not. And emotionally mature women pay attention to these emotional signals carefully. This is why grounded masculine energy feels so attractive psychologically. Not because it dominates, because it stabilizes. And stability creates emotional trust. Next, we're going to bring everything together. We'll explore the hidden reasons certain conversations become unforgettable to women, the emotional mistake that silently destroys attraction even when interest is high, and how emotionally intelligent men create connections so naturally that women often feel drawn toward them without fully understanding why. There's something almost invisible that happens during deeply meaningful conversations. You can't always explain it logically. No dramatic moment occurs, no movie scene, no perfectly scripted line. And yet afterward, a woman finds herself thinking about you while driving home, while lying in bed at night, while making coffee the next morning. Not because you overwhelmed her, because you reached her emotionally. That is the difference most men never fully understand. Attraction is not always loud. Sometimes the strongest attraction feels quiet, steady, calm, safe. Like emotional gravity slowly pulling two people closer together without force. And the men who create this kind of connection are rarely the men trying hardest to impress women. They are the men who understand emotional presence. The men who know how to listen without rushing, how to observe without judging, how to ask without interrogating, how to lead conversations without controlling them, how to create emotional depth without making it feel heavy. That balance is rare, and rarity creates memorability. One of the biggest emotional mistakes men make is believing attraction must constantly escalate through intensity. More flirting, more excitement, more pressure, more performance. But emotionally intelligent women often pull away from men who create too much emotional noise too quickly, because emotional pressure creates emotional fatigue, and fatigue quietly kills attraction. A woman may initially enjoy the attention, but if she constantly feels emotionally managed, emotionally chased, or emotionally overwhelmed, her nervous system eventually starts craving distance instead of connection. This is why emotionally grounded men feel so different. They do not chase emotional reactions constantly. They create emotional space, and space allows attraction to breathe. Think about the most meaningful conversations you've ever had in your own life. Chances are, those conversations didn't feel rushed. They didn't feel performative. They felt natural, safe, present. That emotional atmosphere is what women remember. Not perfection, presence. There's a story I once heard from a woman in her late 30s that perfectly captures this. She said she met two men around the same time after ending a long-term relationship. The first man was charismatic, highly confident, constantly flirting, constantly trying to impress her. Every interaction felt intense. He texted constantly, complimented her constantly, tried to create chemistry constantly. At first, she found it exciting, but after a few weeks, she noticed something important. She never felt emotionally relaxed around him. She always felt like she had to maintain the energy of the interaction, like the connection depended on constant stimulation. Then she met another man, and he was different immediately. He asked thoughtful questions. He listened carefully. He didn't rush intimacy. He allowed silence naturally. He paid attention to details she mentioned casually. He made her feel emotionally calm instead of emotionally pressured. And what fascinated her most was this. She found herself thinking about the second man constantly, even though he was objectively less exciting on the surface. Why? Because emotional peace creates deeper attachment than emotional chaos. That's something modern dating culture often misunderstands completely. Chaos creates adrenaline. Peace creates trust. And trust creates emotional longevity. This is why so many emotionally mature women eventually stop chasing intensity and start craving emotional consistency. Because consistency regulates the nervous system. A man who is emotionally unpredictable may create temporary obsession. But a man who is emotionally grounded creates lasting emotional safety. And safety is where real intimacy grows. Now let's talk about something incredibly important. Many men sabotage emotional connection because they become too outcome-focused during conversations. Instead of being present, they're mentally calculating. Does she like me? Am I saying the right thing? Should I flirt more? Should I text her tomorrow? How do I keep her interested? But the moment you become consumed by outcomes, you stop being emotionally available in the present moment. And women feel that disconnection. Presence means fully experiencing the interaction instead of mentally chasing results. That shift changes everything. Because emotionally attractive communication isn't about trying to make a woman feel something artificially. It's about creating conditions where genuine emotion naturally emerges. And genuine emotion always feels different from manipulation. Women may not consciously analyze why certain men feel emotionally safe and others don't, but their nervous systems know. The body always recognizes emotional authenticity. This is why grounded eye contact matters, why calm speech matters, why patience matters, why emotional steadiness matters, why listening matters. These things communicate safety without words, and safety opens emotional doors that performance never can. One of the most overlooked truths about women is this: many women are far more emotionally guarded than they appear. Even women who seem outgoing, confident, playful, or socially skilled often carry invisible emotional caution beneath the surface. Because life teaches people to protect themselves emotionally, especially after disappointment, betrayal, heartbreak, judgment, manipulation. So when a man consistently creates an emotionally safe environment, her protective layers slowly soften naturally. Not because he forced them open, because she no longer feels she needs them as much. That process cannot be rushed. And emotionally mature men understand that. One conversation rarely changes everything instantly, but emotional consistency builds trust over time. Every calm interaction, every meaningful question, every moment of genuine listening, every emotionally steady response. These experiences accumulate psychologically, and eventually, she begins associating you with emotional comfort itself. That's when connection deepens beyond surface attraction. Now here's another important psychological truth. Women are deeply affected by how emotionally present a man is during small moments. Not just big moments. Small moments reveal emotional character. Did you remember something she mentioned casually? Did you notice when her energy shifted? Did you allow her space to speak fully? Did you stay calm when she became vulnerable? Did you respond thoughtfully instead of reactively? These small emotional details matter enormously because they communicate attentiveness. And attentiveness creates emotional significance. A woman may forget certain compliments you gave her, but she will remember how carefully you listened when she spoke about something meaningful. Because being deeply heard is emotionally intimate. In fact, some psychologists argue that true listening is one of the purest forms of emotional validation. Not agreement, not fixing, not rescuing. Listening. Real listening says, "You matter enough for me to fully pay attention." And in today's distracted world, that experience feels increasingly rare. This is why emotionally intelligent questions are so powerful. Not because they are tricks, but because they create opportunities for authentic emotional connection. A question becomes transformative when it invites someone to reconnect with parts of themselves they rarely get to express. Their dreams, their memories, their values, their fears, their hopes, their emotional needs. Most people are carrying entire emotional worlds inside them that nobody ever slows down enough to explore. When you become the person who genuinely explores those worlds with curiosity and care, your presence becomes emotionally memorable. Now, I want to clarify something very important. None of this is about manipulation. And if your goal is simply to make women like you will miss the deeper point entirely. The real goal is becoming a man capable of creating emotionally healthy connection. That changes not only your dating life, it changes your relationships, your friendships, your leadership, your emotional intelligence, your entire presence in the world. Because once you learn how to make people feel emotionally safe around you, your relationships transform naturally. And here's something fascinating. Emotionally intelligent communication doesn't just attract women, it filters for emotionally mature women. Surface-level interactions attract surface-level dynamics, but emotionally meaningful conversations attract people capable of emotional depth. That's a completely different kind of connection. One built on understanding instead of performance. One built on emotional trust instead of emotional games. One built on authenticity instead of validation seeking. And those relationships feel different. Calmer, deeper, more fulfilling, more emotionally secure. Now let's return to the 6 questions we explored, because together they create something much bigger than conversation. What's something you've always wanted to try but never have? This question activates imagination and possibility. What's the most meaningful part of your day? This question reveals emotional values and inner rhythms. What kind of people do you feel most comfortable around? This question uncovers emotional needs and psychological safety patterns. What's something about yourself you're proud of but rarely talk about? This question invites vulnerability, trust, and emotional openness. What's something that instantly relaxes you or brings you peace? This question reveals emotional regulation and inner sanctuary. What's something you genuinely look forward to in the future? This question activates hope, vision, and emotional direction. Do you see the pattern? Every question bypasses surface identity and touches emotional reality. That's why they work. Not because they are clever, because they are human. And human beings are emotionally starving for real connection now more than ever before. Especially women who spend much of their lives feeling emotionally misunderstood, emotionally rushed, emotionally objectified, or emotionally unseen. A grounded man changes that experience completely. Not through dominance, through emotional awareness. And emotional awareness is becoming one of the rarest forms of strength in modern life. There's one final thing I want you to remember. You do not need to become someone else to create deeper attraction. You do not need to memorize scripts, pretend to be emotionally detached, play manipulative games, or perform exaggerated masculinity. You simply need to become more present, more curious, more emotionally grounded, more attentive, more patient, more sincere. Because connection grows naturally when people feel emotionally safe enough to be fully themselves. And women feel that safety faster than most men realize. The man who understands this no longer chases connection desperately. He creates it naturally through presence. And presence changes everything. If this video spoke to you on a deeper level, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. And I'd love for you to comment below with the question that impacted you most personally today. I read those comments carefully because this community is built around emotional growth, emotional intelligence, and genuine human understanding. And remember this, a woman may forget the exact words you said, but she will never forget how emotionally safe, emotionally alive, and emotionally understood she felt while speaking with you.